Hi guys, thank you so much for coming back to part two of my story. I just want to start off by saying for all those that are going through like what I had to go through now during this difficult time, you're in my thoughts and prayers. It's such an awful time. But I'm going to get straight into it. Oh, and for those that are just tuning in for the first time, you might want to start on my previous video because there's some information that you probably need to know and it won't make much sense. So it's probably better to start at part one and then come on to part two. But I will get straight into it. This is part two. Thank you for joining me again. So where I last left off, the doctor had said to me that I need to have my baby the day after. So I went back to the hospital that night. I got there about 8 o'clock and they put me on a ward with women going through labour, and there was literally only curtains separating us so I could hear everything. And I felt a little bit out of place because I thought to myself, well, I'm feeling physically fine. I didn't have any aches or pains or anything, but I was still able to hear other women go through so much pain. So I did feel a bit awkward, but I just thought, well, if that's where I have to have my son, that's where I have to have him. So I just kind of just got on with it. So one of the nurses attached me to a heart rate monitor, and they were checking my heart rate in and out, and not mine, sorry, the baby's heart rate. So they were in and out of the room, and at times the heart rate did decline, but then it perked itself back up again. So it was a bit of an uncertain time because the doctor did say to me if his heart rate continued to be like weak, then he would have to do an emergency C-section that night. But thankfully it did perk back up again. After a while, a member of staff came in and they actually said to me that there was no incubator in the hospital, no spare one, so I'd have to be transferred to another hospital. Now, at the time, I just thought, well, I mean, it's fine. It's out of my hands. If I have to have him in a different hospital, that's just how it is. So I tried to stay positive during this situation because I felt like if I started to stress, then it would put stress on him. So I tried my hardest to just stay positive and go with the flow, basically. A few minutes later, they came back and said that I'd be transferred to a hospital in Sunderland. Now, I'd never been to Sunderland before. I didn't know much about Sunderland. I literally had to Google Sunderland, and it was about 2.5 hours away. I did start to feel a bit anxious at that point because I don't know anybody there, although I'd be with my family, but it was still out of my comfort zone. But again, I tried to stay positive as I could. So maybe half an hour later, the ambulance people arrived, and the journey was fine. Like, they were really, really nice. They were really talkative, but at that point, I was really tired. It was getting towards midnight before we got there, and I was just ready to get in the hospital and just get started, to be quite honest. So when I arrived in the hospital, I just got this overwhelming homely feeling. It was such a nice hospital. The people were so nice, like really, really nice. I'd never come across so many people that was so nice, like in one place. So I was happy to be there. I was wheeled into a private room, which I preferred because the midwife was with me all night and it was just a lot more private and I couldn't really hear anybody else going through pain and everything. So I was feeling quite optimistic at this point. So throughout the night, they attached me to a heart monitor, the same monitor as I had in the previous hospital. And again, his heart rate was going in and out. There was no consistency. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, the doctor said that he might have to do an emergency C-section that like within the next like 10-15 minutes because of how bad his heart rate was, but then it went back up again. So it was a bit of an uncertain night. Throughout the night, I was receiving magnesium The magnesium, I was told, was to develop his brain. So the more magnesium that I had was able to pass to him, the better the chances. So that was why they weren't in any hurry to deliver, basically. So around 7 o'clock, the doctor came in and he was happy with the amount of magnesium he'd received, and he said that now's the time. So myself and my mum, we went into the operating room, and at that time, I was feeling really numb. I was tired. I was mentally preparing for the worst, because after hearing like so much bad news throughout my pregnancy, I kind of prepared myself mentally to give birth to a stillborn, basically. I don't know why I reacted like that, because I'm usually quite positive person, but I don't, that maybe that was my coping mechanism. I know that I must have definitely felt that, because my mum was with me and she said that I didn't really show much emotion. I was quite emotionless, and that's probably why. Um, so yeah, the doctor explained to me that it would take him about 20 minutes to get the baby out, and then another 40 to 45 minutes to stitch me back up. So I was fine with that. After about 20 minutes, once it started, and after about 20 minutes, I felt like a tug, and then I heard this noise, and I couldn't believe it. Like, he was alive. I was so happy that he was alive. Like, oh, I can't even explain that happiness. But then after a few seconds, reality kicked in, and in my head, I'm thinking, well, he's alive, but what condition is he in? Is he okay? My mum could see everything, so she said that they put him in a little chicken bag as soon as he came out to retain his heat, and both doctors they had a look at him and they gave each other a thumbs up. So when my mum had told me that, I was happy with that. One of the nurses said that he came out pooing, so his bowels were working. That made me feel really good. At the time, I didn't really have much of a chance of seeing him properly, because he had to go into intensive care. But as they wheeled him past, I got a quick glimpse of him. But I can't say that I remember that moment. All I remember is he was sucking his tongue, like I tend to do that, so he's probably got that from me. And that's the only thing I remember from that moment. I don't remember looking at him and thinking, wow, he's tiny, or anything like that. So after that, I kind of had to stay there for them to finish stitching me up. And then they put me into the recovery room. I hated the recovery room. Like, I just felt so ill, and my legs were numb, and I just was feeling really unwell. But throughout that time, they gave me a picture of my baby, and that really did make me feel a lot more happier, to like, so that I had the opportunity to see him properly. And it was quite sad, because looking at the picture, because I noticed that he had like a oxygen mask on, like a CPAP oxygen mask. Sorry, I'm just getting my notes to make sure that I'm really accurate with my story. Yeah, so I couldn't really see his face, and I just felt to myself, I've just given birth to a baby and I don't know what he looks like. So to me, that was really quite heartbreaking. But I tried to stay as positive as I could, tried to focus on my recovery. He came out 1 pound 10 ounces, which was 740 grams. I'd had a scan the day before, as you know, as I mentioned in my first video, and he was 622 grams, 1 pound 6 ounces during that scan. So that could either mean that the scans are not 100% accurate, or he'd grown in a day. I'm not sure, but just to let you know that when they do give you a measurement, sometimes they're not 100% like gospel. So yeah, so I was just trying to recover, and then once I recovered enough to go and see him, I remember looking at him, and he was the tiniest human I've ever seen in my life. I'd never seen a human so small. I mean, throughout this journey, I'd looked at videos and stuff, but that really didn't do it any justice. Like, to see how small he was. His skin was so smooth. I was expecting it to be like translucent, but it was so smooth. He had hair, he had eyebrows, he had everything. He just looked like a miniature human, and I just could not believe that he was here. And I was just, I can't really explain that emotion besides just being overwhelmed and happy that he was here. Um, but again, seeing him with the oxygen mask, it was just so sad. Like, I felt like I don't know what my son looks like. That's how I felt. But I had to try and stay positive and thought, well, he's in the best place and he obviously needs the oxygen, so I left it as that. So the next day, I went in to go and see him, and I could see his face, like his whole face. All he had was the feeding tube. And I was really confused and excited at the same time, because I was like, I'm seeing my baby's face for the first time on one hand. And then on the other hand, I was like, well, why has he not got the oxygen? Does he not need the oxygen? He's so little. So I asked one of the nurses what was going on, and they said throughout the night he pulled the oxygen tube down and he must have been sucking on it like a dummy, and his numbers were sky high, so they realised that he didn't need the oxygen. And after looking at him, I just thought to myself, he's so small, but he's showing me so much strength. He's only been in the world like a few hours, but yet he's teaching me so much. And to me, that helped my strength, and I felt like I need to be strong for my son. So yeah, I'm gonna leave part 2 here, and I'll be uploading part 3 soon. Thank you so much for listening again. Please, everybody, stay safe, and if you like what you hear, like and subscribe. I will update you. I'll let you know when part 3 is available. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye.